Alright. I am back. Wait. Oh. Hold on, I have to restart the freaking thing for my controller to work. Of course. I got a little distracted. Alright. Here we go. Continue. Continue. Okay.
何を見ているかじゃない。何を見せられているかだ。人は体の外からの情報を五感によって得ているけど、その受け取る情報のおよそ 80% は視覚から入ってくるんだ。そして視覚から得られた映像はパルス信号となって視神経を通り脳に送られる。
It's like a telephone, I thought to myself absent-mindedly. A telephone had converted your voice into electrical signals and then sent that information to a distant location.
電話か。似ていると言えなくもない。
Huh? Huh? Did she just read my mind? No, there was no way. Had I been mumbling to myself without realizing it again?
VR 技術を知っているか?
Yes. Yes, I do, actually. That's, what, virtual reality? Of course, I didn't actually answer her aloud.
Visual rebuilding.
Huh? Huh, I was wrong. Never heard of that.
アメリカの精神生理学分野で研究が行われている技術だ。生まれながらに目が不自由な人でも目の前にある景色がちゃんと見えるようになる。ビデオカメラのような映像機器を介してな。どうやってという顔をしているな。だが仕組みとしては単純な話だ。ビデオカメラが映した映像も脳を流れる神経パルスもどちらも突き詰めれば電気による信号なんだぞ。
Not wrong.
要は神経パルスにコンバートできる技術さえあればいい。すでに実際にテストは成功している。ある研究チームが特許を取得済みだ。
Was it patented? Seriously? I thought that it was just a fairly hardcore solution with an impressive amount of depth and detail behind it, but claiming there was a full-on patent was taking it way too far.
その特許から読み取れることがある。
Senna, who had been looking out the window the whole time, returned to face me. She was slowly crossed her legs.
ある意図的な情報を神経パルスへコンバートすることが可能なら、人の五感すべて、さらには人の意志そのものもコントロールできるんじゃないか。
Even though it was right in front of Shibuya Station, it was strangely quiet on the train. It felt as if it had been deprived of sound itself. It was obviously an illusion, but I couldn't help but remember the delusion I'd had several days ago of the deserted Shibuya. As I thought about it, I couldn't take my eyes off of the crowd moving outside the window.
さっき言ったように、人は電気仕掛けだ。脳だけじゃなく、全身に張り巡らされている神経にも電気が通っている。つまり、肉体的な動きまでも操れるということになるんだ。理論的にはな。
This girl. I was taken aback. This girl was even more delusional than both me and Yua combined. What she was saying sounded logical, but it was clearly a total pipe dream.
事実、特許を取得した研究チームもその方向へと研究内容をシフトしている。あまりに危険すぎる内容だったから、アメリカ大統領が歯止めをかけようとして行政命令を出したくらいだ。
How much of what she was saying was actually
いか
true?
なる機関であろうと、 政府との事前合意なしに人体の機密の研究を行うことを禁じる。それを支援することも同様であるとな。
A United States policy clearly defining and regulating research involving human subjects, instated in 1981. The full title is the Federal Policy of the Protection of Human Subjects. Policy states that all institutions performing experimentation involving human subjects must abide by a specific set of rules, such as obtaining informed consent, properly recording findings, and complying with authority, be it a federal department, agency, or institutional review board. In later subparts, additional protections are provided for pregnant women, children, fetuses, and prisoners. Senna looked downward and clasped her hands, resting on her knees
だ
tightly.
が世の中は腐った連中ばかりだ。倫理を無視して自分の利益のためだけに他者を平気で犠牲にするような連中がな。ヘドが出る。
Not wrong. After she finished voicing her disgust, she stuck the last chunk of the nearly melted Frenchicune in her mouth and suddenly stood up. I reflexively started to shrink back, only to run into the wall behind me.
無知は罪だ。知らない方が幸せなこともあるという人間もいるが、そんなのはただの甘えだ。世界を疑え、仕組みを知れ。この世界は完璧じゃない。
He was coming toward me. Thinking she might hit me, I tried to shield my face with my arm, but in the end she zipped right past me without doing
お
anything.
前の見ている景色は本物か。
Without looking at me, she murmured that as we passed each other, and then she promptly exited the train by herself. I stared out the window at Senna as she walked by, without looking back at me even once. She quickly disappeared into the sea of people. In the end, I had absolutely no clue as to what she'd been trying to tell me. The only thing I took from it was that Senna despised the world. Typical Chunibyo. From my point of view, though, it sucked ass to have her shoot her poisonous Stimpush bullshit at me without even letting me get a word in. Her tone of voice alone had made me feel like I was being lectured. The way she talked was often a Malay characteristic when it came to 2D, but in reality, it only served to make her feel even more like a total Dokyun. But the fact that she hadn't attacked me was a relief. A surprise, considering that, for some reason, she always gave off the aura that she was just raring to stop anyone and everyone. I wanted to take a breather after that, so I sat down on the seat where Senna had been sitting before. Don't you freeze, computer and OBS. Immediately following that, a Dokyun couple suddenly came into the car. After that came a trio of people that were obviously Dokyun Kogiarus, then an older middle-aged man, and then a young businessman wearing a suit. Aww. The train car had become claustrophobic in the blink of an eye. Before Senna had left, no one had even tried to enter the car, so where the hell had they all come from? The voices of the Dokyun couple and the Kogiarus were way too loud, so I quickly got out of there, not telling them all to go to hell in my head. Naruhodo. So yeah, that's how I ended up getting tangled up with an IRL Chuni chick. Oh yeah, so this time you have pissed me off. Seriously, Lord Nightheart. You're always saying shit like, oh, I don't give a fuck about 3D. You've been getting real nice and close with a bunch of 3D girls recently, haven't you? You even said earlier that one of them broke into your house. I don't care who you ask. That's straight out of an arrogate. You plunged straight into your once-in-a-lifetime chance to be popular. Alright, listen well. I'll admit that I have indeed amassed quite the number of opportunities to speak with cute females. However, every single IRL one of one is a fucking mental case. You try being on the receiving end of their brain-melting Denpa attacks. The sheer skill of Schizo is so legitimately horrifying. Okay, I truly am sorry. Don't worry about it. Jesus. Even after I had gotten back home, I had still been somewhat interested in what Senna had told me. Of course, I didn't think that what she'd said was true, but I was pretty sure I'd be able to confirm it for myself if I did a little bit of research into the patent and the memorandum specifically. So, with Grimm's help, I started searching the internet. I also was able to get one of Grimm's friends who lived in America to help out as well. But even with all that help, I still didn't think we were going to find anything. In this day and age, you couldn't trust anyone without a source. I think I just got a message from Shiho. Shiho was the friend of Grimm that I'd mentioned earlier. He lived in America and spoke fluent English. Let me guess, BS, right? Let's see what fucking mental case. She had to have just been making a fool out of me because she didn't think I could understand English. I don't underestimate the power of the internet. Consider yourself pwned. It exists, apparently. Ha! Ha! It exists? What did? I mean, I know the thing about human subjects and all. Because, very friggin' common sense. The guy went out of his way to translate it for us. Anyway, let me up it. Is this just more bait? Man, you don't trust me at all, do you, Lamau? Although that's probably my fault for being an ass most of the time, Lolo.
もしかしてマジなのか
Okay, then how about I invite Shiho instead? I'd been tricked by Grimm several times in the past. If I trusted him like I usually did, he'd hit me with something so bad that it'd make my brain short-circuit. But he was saying that he was going to invite Shiho, and that he even had a source for us. If this is just you baiting me again, I'll kick you out of the guild. Okay, trust me just this once. He was being surprisingly confident, and it really was okay to trust him this time.
くそ僕はなんてお人よしなんだ
Slightly nervous, I squinted my eyes halfway shut to protect myself from seeing anything too quickly or too clearly, and then I clicked the link.
なんだこれ
Naruhodo. It was a document written in English with a bunch of strange diagrams on the lower half. Part of it looked like a human face. The headline read, United States Patent. I knew that much, at least. In other words, this was...
アメリカの特許
VR 技術を知っているかすでに実際にテストは成功しているある研究チームが特許を取得済みだ
It was real. I then went to open one of the 2 text files that had come bundled with it. One of them had a series of news articles that seemed to mention the patent, all of which were translated into Japanese. One said that the Psychophysiology Research Laboratory of America's Victor Kandre University. Oh shit. That's gonna be an important thing later in the Science Adventure series. Fuck. Oh dear. Why is it gotta be that university? Was currently researching a groundbreaking invention known as VR, visual rebuilding. As the goal of the research was primarily for healthcare, it had been gaining the attention of visually impaired people from all over the world. It was groundbreaking technology that enabled people who were blind from birth to see the scenery in front of them through video cameras and other imaging devices. Now that I think about it, a certain technology should actually be... Anyway, To put it simply, this is done by converting signals, the ones that compose the image data that the video camera received, into the only signal the brain could recognize. Electrical signals, known as nerve impulses. These are then transported to the brain via the optic nerve. There had already been successful tests, and the patent had already been registered.
特許本当に認められてる
Hold on, I could actually... hold on, I could actually read it. Hold up. Kinda. Let's see. One day, we at Victor Condrey University's Psychophysiology Lab discovered that the electrical signals utilized by various devices share incredible similarities with those of the brain. Firstly, cell phones. Cell phones operate by converting voice input into data, and then sending that data to the receiver via electrical signals, which in this case are transmitted by cell towers. Text-based data is also distributed in this manner. A similar mechanism occurs in video cameras. Images captured by a video camera are transferred via electrical signals to the camera's screen or some other external device, which the receiver can then use to view the data. I can read it! Ah! I shall read it all, because why the fuck not? When it comes to the brain's visual system, the body takes the visual information captured by the eye's photoreceptors and transfers said information via nerve impulses, which then travel along the optic nerve to the brain's occipital lobe. Once it reaches that location, the information can be viewed. That brings us to VR. Despite the name, it does not refer to virtual reality, but to technology Hold on. It is a bit hard to actually read, but... Okay, we also known as virtual rebuilding. Or visual rebuilding. Our goal with the VR is to aid those that have been deeply inconvenienced by blindness and other visual afflictions. With this technology, even those who have been blind from birth will be able to accurately view anything that the eyes can naturally perceive. This is made possible by using video equipment such as video cameras. As some fucking words, man! Mainly because I'm not as posited before. Images provided by a video camera and the nerve impulses traveling through the brain are both essentially electrical signals. Thus, all that is needed for the brain to interpret those images is technology that can convert the signals into nerve impulses. That technology is VR. In conclusion, by utilizing visual rebuilding, we can convert video data into nerve impulses, which can then be used to establish sight. We at Victor Condrey University have already visited several other universities and scientific organizations in order to present our findings. It opened And upon... Upon? Upon being met with glowing reception, we applied for a patent. Many were very excited at how promising it was for the future of the visually impaired, and some even went on to theorize that those with access to especially repressive especially expressive visual video equipment would perhaps be able to obtain a visual vision surpassing human limitations. We have already had many successful tests with this technology, and as we continued our research, our patent was accepted. Oh. Anyway, so did that mean that what Senna had said wasn't just some toony delusion? I gulped and went on to open the other text file. I began reading. Presidential Documents, Memorandum of March 27th, 1997. Strengthened protections for human subjects of classified research. The agencies shall jointly propose to prohibit a waiver of informed consent for classified research, part of it said. To agree to any form of contract under the condition of being provided the correct information. In Japan, it is primarily used in the medical field. The physician explains the treatment to the patient truthfully in detail and in an easily understood manner. This includes the definition of the treatment as well as its side effects, success rate, risks, costs, alternative treatments, etc. Once the patient fully understands these, they are able to provide consent. Beginning 1 year after the date of this memorandum, no agency shall conduct or support classified human research without having proposed and promulgated the common rule, said another. The document was then signed at the bottom by William J. Clinton. Bill Clinton! And closed with the White House, Washington, March 27th, 1997. Hey, it's Bill Clinton! Memorandum from the President of the United States. Content sounded like the premise to a movie or something, so I never would have thought it was actually real. I went to check the original document via the URL. Even I could read it, English for the most part. Despite how it might have looked, I was a lot smarter than those docuns that went to school every day. The actual contents written in the document were the same as the translated text. Ah. Send those words echoed in the back of my mind.
ある意図的な情報を神経パルスへコンバートすることが可能なら、人の五感すべて、さらには人の意志そのものもコントロールできるんじゃないか。
Oh. Well, it's starting to get somewhat difficult to understand at this point, but with what Senna had told me, combined with the sources that we'd found online that backed her up, it all sent chills down my spine. Yeah, I see an electrical diagram right there. And part of it is an electrical diagram, the other part is just diagrams of the brain and presumably what would happen in part of the brain. Presumably the occipital lobe. Or orbitofrontal cortex, or whatever. Prefrontal lobotomy. Ha. Anyway. It's starting to get somewhat difficult to understand at this point, but with what Senna has told me combined with blah, 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 I had a feeling that something terrible was lurking within. But what confused me the most was what Senna's true intentions were in telling me all this. Did it have anything to do with me? The part about being able to control people's free will definitely wasn't something I could dismiss as somebody else's problem. Because there was a possibility that I was a sleepwalker. On the day of the third New Gen incident, the crucifixion, I had been told that I'd been posting it in a chat room as Shogun. Probably I'd posted from at Cafe too, but I had no memory of any of it. And not only that, but I had absolutely no memory of Remy too. We had been classmates for over a year, and we had been close enough to hang out on multiple occasions, yet I had no memory of any of it. Maybe I had done all those things while I was being manipulated by some other being. Besides, I was terrible at talking to 3D girls to begin with, so there was no way I would be close to a cute girl like me normally. No, I was thinking too hard about this. At the very least, I knew that the chat thing was just one of Yua's delusions. Shogun was a separate entity from me. He was trying to entrap me, and it didn't go beyond that. This was true regardless of whether or not he had actually been the old man in the wheelchair that had appeared in front of 107. I had no clue how fast I talked there, but... yeah. Maybe Suna too was one of Shogun's underlings. Maybe she was just trying to deceive me. Don't just blindly accept everything without questioning it. I don't trust a suspicious girl that you don't actually know. Suna and Yua were both of the same breed. That's how it should go, right, Saratan? Oh, Yua time! The only sound present in the room was the distinct clacking of a keyboard. Kusunoki Yua's thin, supple fingers moved as they were dancing, her gaze fixed on the monitor all the while. Her touch typing was effortless, and she made next to no typos. I can do that too, except I don't even need to feel the computer. Like, have my fingers on the home row and all that. All I need to know is, where are my fingers? I'm good to go. She was writing an email. A very long one at that. Yua had already been writing for almost half an hour, endlessly deliberating over the contents of the email and making frequent revisions as she continued to type. Suddenly her fingers stopped moving. With a small pained sigh, she abruptly pressed and held down the backspace key. Oof. The cursor that was lit up on the monitor began scrolling upward at high speed. All the long sentences she had written so far disappeared literally instantaneously as the cursor traveled across the screen. Oof. When all the contents had been erased, Yua took hold of the good old froggy stuffed animal lying on her bed and hugged it tightly to her chest. This was a habit that Yua had developed recently. If she did not hug something in this way, she would be faced with unbearable anxiety. Bah. There we go. Alright. Burying her chin in the stuffed animal, Yua sighed once again and shook her head softly. Murmuring softly to no one in particular, Yua's expression stiffened. With the stuffed animal resting on her lap, she returned to her hands to the keyboard. Within the monitor, each letter she typed in a fluid manner was quickly displayed in sequence. Compared to the one she had erased just moments before, this email was far more short and simple. Only served to provide the bare necessities of what she wanted it to convey. When she finished writing, Yua hesitated for a moment, and then she resolutely clicked on the send icon. Before she could stop it from going through, the email had already been sent in the blink of an eye. Yua squeezed the gutter froggy sitting on her lap tightly and continued to stare at the monitor in front of her for over an hour. Aww. Although she had not been expecting one, there was no sign of a reply at all. There I was in my beloved room 37. As I sank down into the recliner, I started chewing on my nails in an attempt to distract myself from my irritation. There was a reason why I had come to F Cafe 2 days in a row, yesterday and today. 2 nights ago, after Grim and Shio and I had found out that what Senna had said was true, I'd received an email from Yua. I figured. In it, she instantly said that she wanted to talk to me one more time. Fuck off, I'd wanted to tell her. What the hell did she mean she wanted to talk after deceiving me like that? I had nothing to say to her. I mean, if I did, she'd probably just come up with some new fancy way to trap me when I went to see her. As if I could risk that. It was true that I wasn't used to talking to girls. That was why I'd been so happy back when Yua was hitting on me. And yet, the heart had been toying with me behind my back. And on top of that, she'd come up with all those insane delusions. Even though I had delusions, sure, but I had never bothered anyone else with them. But that girl assaulted me with her schizo BS. That treated me like I was the new gen culprit. I could never forgive what she'd done to me. Never. So I'd ignored her email. But there had still been one thing that concerned me. In her email, she'd said she was going to come to my base, and I knew for a fact that she knew my address. That was why I decided to take refuge at a cafe, despite it not being a school day. If I had the option, I would have brought my D-sword as a protective job, but unlike Senna, I didn't have the courage to walk down and sit her guy with it. Plus, people can actually see it, because it's not a real D-sword. At any rate, spending almost half a day in an internet cafe was fairly tiring. The recliners are comfortable and it was equipped with showers, but I still couldn't fully relax like I could at my base. And then the biggest problem of all, Serotan wasn't here. After 2 days spent holed up in the cafe, I realized just how much the mere presence of Serotan helped me. I wanted to hurry up and get back to my base as soon as possible. But going back late at night would mean the date would change. And by that time, the last train would already be gone. I figured that he most likely wouldn't be waiting for me anymore by then. I had to stick around for another 4 hours before the clock would strike midnight. I was sure time would go by a lot faster if I played ESO. I moved my gaze over the PC monitor. My second character, Lancelot, was standing there aimlessly, not moving.
お前の見ている景色は本物か
Senna's words came to mind. More than half of what she said was true. The only thing I couldn't find a source for was the part where she was talking about controlling even people's wills and bodies. And that part was just an illusion of hers. Mixing in just a few lines with the truth was a clever and effective way to scare people, especially with threats. Even though my reasonable side knew all that, I couldn't help but feel scared as I thought about all the strange and inexplicable phenomena that have been plaguing me over the past few weeks. In the days, I looked at Lancelot on the screen. Lieselot.
お前の見ている景色は本物か
Okay, I finally got a freaking pronunciation. I mean, I could have looked it up, I'm pretty sure, but Lieselot. Or Lieselot. Lieselot. Keeping my voice low to avoid being overheard, I whispered that absent-mindedly. I have thought about something like this several times in the past. The world that I was looking at right now, Baselot, was the world that Lieselot lived in. It might have been real for her, but from my perspective it was fake. Which meant that the world that I was lived in was seen as fake from the point of view of the person controlling me. Now, just as Lieselot couldn't perceive me as a higher being, I also couldn't perceive the person controlling me as a higher being. I wondered if Lieselot was thinking the same things that I was thinking. At the very least, she couldn't move on her own. I had to interfere in order for her to move. So what about me? Maybe I too couldn't get up from this recliner without the interference of the person controlling me. You're right. To test this, I tried to stand up. I did it with ease. Alright, because I continued. After that, I tried sitting down. Took no effort. But this sequence of events was really of my own volition. Or was it the result of someone's interference? I had no way of knowing. Hi. Hi. I heard the sound of the partition doors of the private room being opened behind me. And at the same time, I felt someone come in. Startled, I turned around. Ah! Ah! Oh no! Kusunoki Yua. I was so terrified that I was about to scream. But Yua's hand quickly covered my mouth. Her hand was hot, and the scent of Yua's sweat infiltrated my nose. Ah. 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 Oh no. Okay. No other choice, I guess. In this small private room, the only way out was blocked by Yua. The next thing I knew, my shoulders were being held down with such incredible force I couldn't even get up from the seat. Yua's cold gaze pierced through me at point-blank range. I couldn't help but look away, and my eyes fell on the 3 ghetto furries attached to the bag she was carrying on her shoulder.
声を出さないで。
What do I do? What should I do? I tried desperately to think of a way out of this situation, but it was no use. I couldn't think clearly. Rip. Takumi. It had taken me completely by surprise. My mind had gone completely blank. Ha!
夜まで待ってたんですけど、でも私を避けようとする西条くんの気持ちはよくわかります。私西条くんのこと騙してたわけだし。
You acknowledge that, then just stay away from me. I have nothing to say to any of Shogun's underlings. Anyone who traps a weak person like me is a demon. You will look down once. But then after a moment, she very clearly said a single phrase.
その目、誰の目？知ってますよね。ヴァンパイアのダイイングメッセージです。ネットで公表されたことで渋谷で大流行中の言葉。でも私、流行る前から知ってました。ヴァンパイアより前にこの言葉を使っている人がいたから。将軍、前に見たナイトハルト、西条君と将軍のチャットログ、前に見せましたよね。そこで将軍が書き込んでました。その目、誰の目？そして
You had inched her face closer and closer to mine. Her tone of voice was calm, but the eyes shining behind her glasses were ice cold. She was staring at me. I looked away.
将軍はあなた、つまり
In other words, what?
お願いです、西条君。もう
That was when I noticed his hands were trembling. It wasn't just that my hands were shaking so much, it made it look like hers were too. While I pondered that, something unbelievable came out of her mouth.
人を殺すのはやめてください。
He's never killed a single person. What?
自覚がないんですね。でもそれも私には理解できます。西条君に自覚があるはずないから。
Knowing what?
あなたは
His eyes shone with sorrow. Even though she had been staring at me intently until now, she suddenly cast her eyes downward.
DID 多重人格なんです。
I had multiple personalities.
最初はあなたのこと警察に突き出すつもりでした。
Despite how confused I was, you would continue to
それ
talk.
が無理ならこの手でとも思ってました。だけどあなたのこと調べていくうちにあなたも苦しんでるんだって分かって。
The eyes behind Yua's glasses once again took hold of me. They pleaded with me. And no matter how hard I tried to see it as something else, I couldn't see her as anything other than genuinely worried about me. And that horrified me.
私あなたを助けたい。
The thing is, Takumi doesn't have that issue. He definitely does not have that issue. Now he definitely sleepwalks at times, but not that. I mean, he might also be controlled at times too, via his illusions. This girl's delusions were getting out of control. What was she saying? What she was saying was totally insane. Or was it? Was it really insane?
だから
Get it
病
with
院に
my
行きま
head.
しょう
Huh. I didn't truly know myself, understand myself. I had posted in a chat room under the handle Shogun without knowing it. Even though I had no memory of it, I had become friends with a girl named Yorimi. It wasn't just me sleepwalking. It wasn't some higher being controlling me. Maybe the person controlling me from inside my head. It literally was inside my head. I wasn't me. I wasn't me. I was a different personality. I had multiple personalities. My head hurt. A throbbing, stabbing pain ripped through it. That wasn't possible. The entire thing was bullshit. Who would ever believe that? Her too was yet another one of Yua's delusions. She was my enemy. She was impeding my way of life. She was trying to trap me. She was trying to destroy my mind. Even the hospital itself was under Shogun's reign. The only person I trusted, Dr. Takashina, had disappeared in such a sudden, inexplicable manner. Shogun must have made him disappear, and if I did what Yua said, he'd make me disappear too. I don't believe her. It's not true. It's not true that it's not true, 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 it's not true. Too many. I was stuck in my own head. I shoved you off me with every ounce of strength I could muster. Run, you fool! Slamming into the wooden sliding door behind her, Yua slumped down to the floor with a grimace. Run, Hangami! Finally freed from Yua's grasp, I grabbed my bag, stepped over Yua's body, and made for the exit. Run! Still crumpled on the floor, Yua grabbed my ankle. Her hand was disheveled, and her glasses were falling off her face, but she made no effort to fix them. Seeing her clinging so desperately to me terrified me so much, a pathetic scream escaped from my mouth. He was my enemy, one of Shogun's underlings. I won't be deceived. I wouldn't be deceived by you ever again. I shouted as loud as I could, and you quickly let go of me. In that window, I bolted out of the room. Run away! I tore a 5,000 yen bill from my wallet and sent it down on the counter in front of the dumbfounded receptionist. And then, without getting my change, I burst onto the elevator leading outside. Understandable. I mean, he might get his change later, but hey. Because I assume that his face is known there. So, I assume the receptionist will probably be like, he'll be back. I returned then. Maybe. I don't know. I nearly tumbled out of the elevator as it burst outside. The sun was already setting. I examined my surroundings. There were people everywhere. Run. It doesn't matter where, just run. My base wasn't safe. She was following me. I had no idea where to even go, but I started running anyway. I think that you might get off another elevator at any moment, that she might threaten me again in that ice-cold voice of hers. I didn't want to stay here for even a second longer. I looked behind me over and over again, but I kept on running regardless of what I saw. The dead streams were all in the way. I bumped into a businessman at a Dokunes high school girl. When that happened, I was showered with curses. I still didn't stop. I just kept on running. It hurt to breathe. I picked some random ass word without thinking. I still had no idea where I was running. I stopped to catch my breath. I checked the scenery around where I was standing. It was in front of Maruichi, which meant I could take shelter in Miyashita Park. I would take a quick break there, then I would run somewhere farther away. If I went to Yoyogi Park, there would be plenty of places to hide, so I could spend the night there. I couldn't help but wonder what was behind me. I didn't see any signs of Yua. However, I wouldn't be surprised if she appeared in front of me at any second now, complete with the most terrifying demonic expression I had ever encountered. My instincts screamed at me. Run! You need to run! Exhausted, I weakly sat down on the pavement of the Miyashita Park overpass. I'd run way too much. My throat was sick. I wanted to drink an ice cold cola. Water would be better. But I didn't see any vending machines nearby. Maybe I was okay now that I'd come this far. No, I couldn't be careless. I still had to be fully aware of my surroundings. There should only be a few people in Miyashita Park at night. Or at least that was what I'd expected, but much to my surprise that wasn't the case. It was a businessman walking briskly through the park, likely using it as a shortcut. An older man sitting on a bench messing with his cell phone. Several homeless people sitting around absentmindedly, and lastly a person wearing blue talking to one of them. A police officer. Suwa? Suwa? The police. I gulped audibly. I remembered that I'd been questioned by a pair of detectives a while ago. I hadn't heard a single thing from them since then. They'd said they were going to guard the area surrounding my base, but there was no sign of them following through on it. Although, according to Misumi-kun, they'd apparently come to investigate Suime. Those two detectives, what were their names again? I couldn't remember. I told both of them the truth about what I'd witnessed at the scene of the crucifixion, but in hindsight, I couldn't help but think that they'd clearly been looking at me with suspicion as I did. Well, Suwa did, but I doubt Bon really suspected him, since, you know, Takumi was clearly off his rocker. And, of course, spouted quite a few contradictions compared to their investigation, apparently. So, I guess in their minds, Takumi didn't see the real thing. Right, as I thought that, the policemen who had been talking to the homeless man glanced at me, or at least that was how it felt. Oh no. Is that Suwa? You're overthinking it, I thought to myself, but I still tried to follow the police officer's movements closely. Maybe I was being too obvious because the cop looked over once again, and it was clearly directed at me this time. I was the first one to look down. I doubted that I could still have a staring contest against the cop. Had he looked at me for a reason, or had he just looked at me because I looked at him? Which was it? I didn't know. I could have been either one of those reasons. After waiting a few months, I looked up and glanced at the officer once again. The cop was still looking at me, so I hurriedly turned my head away in a panic. This was bad. I was acting way too suspicious. You're goddamn right you are. You continue staring at him, being like, hey, how you doing? Or you don't look at all. With you already hunting me down, I couldn't afford to have the police coming after me too. I had to get out of this somehow. I whacked a cold sweat from my forehead. Still sitting down, I took a textbook out from my bag. I pretended to start reading it, but then I looked over to see what the policeman was doing. The police officer brought a black object, likely a police radio, to his mouth. Was he reporting something? But from where I was sitting, the sound of cars passing by on the street below me was so loud I couldn't hear his voice at all. This couldn't have gone any worse. That was what I felt like. Maybe I should get out of here, I thought to myself, but it was too late for that. If I did anything careless, it would be suicide. If you pretended to read a book, you would have to keep up that pretense for a certain amount of time, or else you'd look suspicious. I had to keep up the act until the cops stopped looking at me. But right as I thought that, I realized that a figure who had previously looked like they were heading for the park was instead walking straight toward the policeman. Upon looking at them with the corner of my eyes shot open. She couldn't possibly have come at a worse time. Holy shit, she found him. Cold sweat seeped not only from my forehead, but from my entire body. This was bad. This was really, really bad. Didn't look like Yua had noticed me yet, so I prayed that she would just walk away without doing so, but my prayers went unanswered. For all the policeman's gaze was still trained on me. It was only natural that Yua, who had ran up to the cop and said something to him, would follow his gaze and lock onto me. I clicked my tongue, tucked my textbook back into my bag, then partially got up. I took a position that would allow me to bolt at any time. You and the policeman exchanged a few words, and then they both looked at me. Oh no. Now don't look at me. Yoda then blatantly pointed at me. She wasn't saying something to the cop. You gotta be kidding. You gotta be fucking kidding. It sounded like it was enough to make even a level-headed person like myself completely snap. Level-headed? Who the fuck are you calling level-headed? You're not level-headed, boy. I'm much more level-headed than this kid. He was reporting me to the police. Not only that, but she was telling me that nonsensical delusional bullshit that she pulled out of her goddamn ass. The idea that I was a Nugent killer. That may be enough to satisfy you, but just put yourself in my shoes. How do you feel if you got falsely accused? My cries obviously had no way of reaching her. The policeman who had listened to you began to approach me, his shoulders squared. I stood up. Shit. I was trapped. She was going to ruin my life. What do I do? What should I do? Should I just tell the policeman the truth? That was all delusion she came up with. I didn't do anything. I was a model citizen. There was no way. That would never work. In this day and age, when given the choice between an talk freak like me and a wholesome high school girl like you, it was fairly obvious who the cops were more likely to believe. There was no way they'd ever take anything I had to say seriously. And that was why I had to run away right this instant. The second I thought that, I turned on my heel and broke into a sprint. Aww. I crossed the overpass leading toward the stairs to Michidori. When I got there, I looked behind me and saw a policeman sprinting after me. Yeah, I mean, obviously. Not only that, but strangely enough, the man sitting on the bench and even one of the homeless people were right behind him. You've got to be kidding. Had you had the police on her side the entire time? Had Miyashita Park been full of undercover detectives the entire time? I had no idea what to do anymore. And I had been caught completely off guard. It was so incredibly unreasonable that I felt like I was about to cry. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't done anything at all. The police were being jerked around by her. This was insane. Wiping away my tears, I rushed down the stairs. I ran down Michidori, heading straight toward the station without looking at anyone or anything. I passed under a pedestrian overpass and ran up the stairs leading to it. There were people everywhere, all of them were blocking my path. It felt as if each and every one of them were deliberately getting in my way, like they all had some form of malicious intent. They all looked like they could be cops. I was this close to completely panicking. I looked behind me and I saw someone sprinting after me. I caught a glimpse of a person cutting through the crowd just like I was. It was one of the people that I'd seen in the park. I didn't know who it was. It didn't matter. They were following me regardless. I was horrified. If I got caught, my life would be over. I would be falsely accused of a crime I didn't commit, sentenced to death, locked up in a high-security prison for decades and decades. And then after I finished enduring the living hell, I would finally be told, alright then, your number's up. Time for you to die. I didn't want that. I wouldn't be able to handle that. I didn't want to live like that. Even if I somehow managed to prove that it was a false accusation, because I was branded a criminal, that it would never go away. Everyone around me would look at me suspiciously for the rest of my life. I didn't want that. I hadn't even done anything. I turned onto a small street that was completely deserted and kept running as hard as I could. I had been running ever since I left At Cafe, and I still hadn't been able to catch my breath. My lungs were begging for oxygen. My legs were shaking with fatigue. I hated myself for not exercising anymore, but it was too late for that regardless. Finally, I couldn't run anymore, so I doubled over and gripped my knees with my hands. The place where I'd stopped looked familiar. The distinctive red brick walls, paired with the gigantic backlit sign that read Gigantus. I'd been here before with Misumi-kun. We'd come to see a Phantasm concert, or to be more specific, to see their lead singer, FES. But now the place was quiet and empty, with the only other light being from the vending machine illuminating my surroundings. Frustrated at my breathing still hadn't gone back to normal, I looked back toward the road I had sprinted down. The street was dimly lit and narrow, as the Toyoko line train slowly passed by directly above me, despite the striking glow of the light. Leaking from the windows of the train, it didn't reach the streets below. It stood at a road in front of me. I wonder if I had managed to lose them being Yua and the police. It was too dark for me to tell for sure.
私についてきて。
Nani? Oh, FES. Ha! Suddenly I heard a woman's voice in my ear and I let out a pathetic scream before toppling to the ground. Yeah, it was FES, dressed in a flashy outfit that she would wear to a concert. As she quietly looked down at me from the darkness, the eruptive energy that she'd given off while she was on stage was now completely absent, making her appear almost transient, like she might disappear at any moment. Because of the darkness, I couldn't see her expression. As my mind wandered in my surprise, FES gently held her hand out to me.
だって、早く。
Her tone of voice was dispassionate, but I could tell that she wasn't going to let me argue with her. Still holding out her hand, FES slowly craned her neck, then narrowed her eyes as if she had seen through the darkness.
逃げないと。
Why? Did she know that I'd been running from you and the police? I was freaked out for a second, but I knew that right now, salvation was almost within my grasp. That was why, as if I was clinging to my only hope left, I took her hand. Her hand was cold to the touch. Right as I stood up, FES started running. As I was already utterly exhausted, I felt incredible resentment. I knew that if it hadn't been for FES, I would have never been able to stand up again, and the police would have likely caught up with me. I still wanted to quench my dying thirst in some way, but I knew I couldn't afford to. FES pulled me by the hand and led us forward. We entered a narrow alleyway and made turn after turn at various intersections. I had no idea where I was running to. I wasn't even familiar with the layout of Shibuya, so I had no choice but to follow FES the entire time. I nearly entertained the idea that this could be another trap set by Shogun, but I shook the thought from my head. Even if FES was another one of Shogun's underlings, there would be nothing I could do about it. My legs were heavy with lactic acid, and I was starting to feel lightheaded, probably because my brain hadn't been getting enough oxygen to do all the running. I was this close to crying out and saying that I couldn't run anymore. In fact, I may or may not have said it several times unconsciously. But even so, FES never once looked back at me. She just kept on going. Before I knew it, I found myself on a road where the Shuto Expressway ran overhead. The Shibuya station was only a little bit farther away, but there were barely any people around. Without a shred of hesitation, FES started to head down the stairs that led into the gaping maw of the underground. Upon reaching the bottom of the stairs, she finally came to a stop. I let go of FES's hand and doubled over on the stairs, gasping for breath. I wondered how much running I had done today. I didn't think I'd ever exercised so much in my entire life. You need to exercise, boy. You need that cardio. Especially the cardio. I mean, I need the cardio, but hey, I can walk at least 6 miles in a day in 2 hours. And my legs would probably be a little tired, but hey, that's better than this guy. She's also a little exhausted. For a while, the only sounds present in the dim, dreary underground tunnel were the sounds of me and FES breathing. I looked up at the entrance where we had just come down from, but there was no sign of our pursuers. I guess that meant we'd managed to escape somehow. Outside, this was my first time learning that this underground passage even existed. On top of that, even though it was fairly close to the station, there wasn't a single person passing through it. One of the fluorescent lights that illuminated the tunnel was on its last legs, flickering on and off without end. Oh, I know that kind of thing. There was a faint smell of rotting garbage in the air. It was a place that symbolized the underground side of Shibuya. If someone were to attack me here, even if I screamed as loud as I could, I may not even reach the outside. This was not a place I would ever want to come alone to. Oh. That's the solution. Still breathing heavily, I slowly examined FES's profile. She was a charismatic songstress who captivated the youth of Shibuya. People even called her a prophet. And now that very same FES was here alone with an otaku freak piece of shit like me. I wasn't sure what to make of it. Her forehead was beading with sweat, with several drops running down her cheeks. She was wiping it off with the back of her hand. Her breasts, exposed to her camisole, rose and fell with every breath she took. A glimpse providing healthy eroticism in an atmosphere flowing with ennui. Boy, you didn't do it justice. The best and only possible word befitting of her was erotic. She was tall, had a great body, and she looked like a model. I was sure she was popular with guys, too. Wait, what kind of stupid shit was I thinking about? Did I forget the situation I was in? Oh. So I nodded in response. It wasn't just the police, Yui was following me too, but I was too exhausted to tell her that. Huh? What was that supposed to mean? Oh. Nugent. Huh. Nugent. The lyrics that FES had written matched up with that string of incidents. That was why all her sheep wouldn't shut up with all those rumors. He'd been saying that she was a prophet. As the Nugent criminal, I thought the same thing back when I first heard her lyrics. Hell, I'd even thought that FES herself was Shogun. But considering the fact that she saved me, she probably wasn't. Putting all that aside, I wondered why FES was even there. Her saving me must have just been a coincidence. Yeah, it had to be. Nah, man. I don't think it was a coincidence. I mean, I'd been right in front of the concert venue, so there was probably just another concert today. He was trying to set me up. God damn it, Shogun and that girl were going to ruin my life. Alright. I don't know if that's what you did, but hey. Oh, is she laughing? I yelled out frantically. My voice reverberated loudly throughout the underpass. I couldn't stop now. FES whispered, returning to her original dispassionate voice. Aww. Another fucking mental case. Another goddamn Chunibyo. Ah. Oh. As in, yeah. I was thinking that was probably the case that all that blood, all those extra crucifixes and all were probably a delusion. Horrible scene. Was there any possibility that it had all been just an illusion? It all felt so real. Well, what was she saying? I was utterly dejected. I had been slightly suspicious back at the concert, and I turned that out to be right. FES really was a total schizo freak. They say there's a fine line between genius and insanity, but this is pushing it.
だから早く見つけて剣を見つけて
I was taken aback. That was what FES had told me back when we'd met at school. If you do, you'll be granted salvation. He said this before. Aside from the police, what scared me the most was Shogun and his underlings. I had no idea why, but they were all trying to trap me, and all clearly had malicious intent. In order to save myself from them, in order to protect myself, I needed...
理想度。
そうよ
FES's lips twisted into the shape of a smile.
それなら手に入れた。
You didn't.
僕は理想度も持ってる。今家に。
知ってるわ
Ha! She knew. How did she
だ
know?
か
Ha!
ら君が渋谷のど真ん中歩いていたのを大きなおもちゃを抱きしめて恥ずかしそうにしてたわね
Was she talking about the day I fought the D-Sword? Ah, FES had seen me. Fuck my life. Wait a minute. What did she just said?
おもちゃ。
Ha! Ah. The smile had already disappeared from FES's face. She glanced at my face and let out a small sigh. Her sense of ennui. Her aloofness was so pure it made me feel uneasy.
偽物だと思うわあなたの買った剣は
Yeah? I wasn't even that surprised. I'd expected it, honestly. The sword I bought was way too cheap compared to the one Senna had. It didn't even glow. Besides, the idea that a sword that would supposedly bring me salvation was being sold for 10,000 yen alongside sex toys was the least anime thing possible. So yeah, I wasn't surprised. Instead, I felt a furious surge of anger well up inside me. You got duped, boy! Yeah. Anger at the gloomy shopkeeper who tricked me. Anger at myself for being so pathetic that I'd be tricked that easily. Yeah. Anger at FES for saying nothing meaningful in the slightest instead of just giving me a straight answer.
じゃあ。
I stood up and moved closer to FES. Normally I would have never done something like that, but I was desperate. I'd been being chased by Iwa and the police only a few moments ago. I was absolutely terrified. Not only that, but in the past months or so, I'd experienced countless bad thoughts. It was all too much for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get my hands on a sword so I could get back to my peaceful way of life.
教えてよ。理想度はどうやって手に入れるのか。
FES's expression stiffened and then she turned to me. She suddenly thrust the palm of her right hand out in front of me. Stopping me from coming any closer, FES curled her right hand into a fist. And upon swinging her hand behind her in a motion resembling a pack fist, together with a sound akin to that of glass break, the empty space cracked and then it shattered. My eyes went wide. I was speechless. FES stared at me. Her expression had not changed in the slightest. Within the cracks of the shattered space was a deep darkness spreading wide. With her hand buried between the fissures, FES pulled her hand back toward her with tremendous force. Naruhodo. And now, within that hand was a giant sword.
そうだ。
The fissures in the empty space were repaired in an instant. The cracks disappeared as if nothing had even happened. It all happened in the span of a few seconds. Had that been a magic trick? Was what I was seeing just a delusion? It was far too removed from reality. I mean, it probably is a delusion, you know? But I couldn't believe what had just happened right in front of me. This was a fantasy anime.
この剣は命運を握る
A sword. It was the same one she'd been wielding at the concert. The same one I'd mistaken for microphone stand. Its shape almost looked like a battleship ripped straight from a sci-fi anime.
この剣は嘆きを収束させたもの。
There were no straight lines to be found on it, and yet it appeared incredibly sharp. Incredibly beautiful. Incredibly
こ
sinister.
の剣は超越した場所に干渉するためのもの。
And that if you so much as touch it, your fingers would be severed from the bone.
超越した場所って。
I was mesmerized. Her D-sword utterly captivated me, which was why I'd asked her that without thinking.
異空間のようなもの。
Oh boy, info dump time. This is definitely an anime at this point.
同一次元上にあるもう一つの可能性。 あるいは妄想。
A delusion.
言い方にあんまり意味はないわ。唯一確かなの。この剣もその領域に存在しているということ。
So, in other words, she was saying that her D-sword was a product of her delusions. Did that mean that the supernatural phenomena I'd seen before had also been delusions? Had they not been real?
そんなのありえない。
そう。
If it was the delusion, then why was I seeing FES's sword right now?
言葉に引きずられてはダメよ。後ろを振り返ってみて。
I was baffled by FES's request, but I complied anyway. Behind me was a flight of stairs, and not on those stairs was FES wearing her school uniform. FES was standing right beside me. FES was also standing on the stairs right in front of me. Two of the same person in the same place. Completely and utterly flustered, I relentlessly snapped back and forth between the two FESs over and over again, comparing them. They were exactly the same, right down to their facial features, height, and hairstyles. The only differences were their clothes and whether or not they were carrying his sword. They weren't twins or anything like that. They didn't just look alike. They were one and the same.
これも君の妄想よ。
Huh. The two FESs said that at the exact same time. My head started to hurt. What kind of insane phenomenon was this shit? What the hell was happening? He can't deny it now! Hey, bond time! As he walked cautiously through the narrow, trash-ridden streets of Mario Macho, Ban Yasuji jammed one hand into his pants pocket. Inside, he found a few dozen small coins.
先輩、貼り付けの現場に何があるって言うんすか？もう事件から2週間以上経ってるし、散々調べられた後っすよ。新しい証拠なんて出てきませんって。
Ah, his partner, Detective Sua, had been walking behind him, rousing in an irritated voice for quite some time. That was understandable, of course, as the job originally assigned to them had been to tail an important witness for the Nugent cases, Nishijo Takumi. However, the two of them had abandoned their tailing mission and had instead come to the scene of the third Nugent incident, colloquially known as crucifixion. Ban had decided to abandon their original task of tailing Nishijo Takumi, forcing the burden onto some other detective in the same jurisdiction. The rookie detective Sua was not pleased by this. Oh.
やっぱまずいっすよ。尾行に戻りましょう。
The rookie detective had consistently been pushed around by his senior without any explanation, and he could not stand it. For that reason, he had been insistently trying to persuade Ban for a long while now. To this, Ban only said,
いいから黙ってついてこいって。
He remained aloof and refused to heed his junior's perfectly sound arguments. Finally, they had last come across a narrow road, blocked off by yellow barricade tape. Sua let out the latest in his myriad of sighs. His cell phone began vibrating near his chest. He quickly took out his phone, which had been set to vibrate, assumed the look of a capable detective, and pressed the accept button.
座っす。
Ha!
はい。はい。
As he listened to Sua's voice, Coming from behind him, Bond came to a stop in front of the barricade tape. Behind that tape was the crime scene. The deep darkness had settled over the area, just as it had when the crime had been committed. But now there were no remaining traces of the incident, save for the barricade tape.
見失った
Ha!
女かやられたっすね
I figured that cop that Takumi was being chased by was the one they were talking about.
とりあえず深センの家に戻ってほしいっすはい張り込んでてください
Wait, they know where he lives? Oh my god. They do know where he lives.
いやいや大丈夫っすよ責任はバン警部補が取るっすから
Bond smiled wryly upon hearing that. So it could be surprisingly shrewd. Of course, Bond had no intention of placing the blame onto his subordinates, nor onto the detective he had placed in charge.
なるべく早くこっちも合流します本当申し訳ないっすお願いします
Right as Sua hung up the phone and returned his begrudging gaze to Bond, Bond ducked under the tape. Sua had no choice but to reluctantly accompany him.
見失ったって
Ah!
尾行に気づかれたっす
Well, it's more like he thought he was being chased. Not that he was being tailed specifically.
直前にネットカフェで一騒動あったみたいっすし
女っての
岸本綾瀬っす
Ooh. Oh, wait, FES, right.
お騒がせバンドのジョーちゃんかつながりは
同じ学校の同じ学年っすね他は今のところ特にクラスメイトでもないっす
Bond brought a hand to his chin, savoring the rough texture of his stubble for a moment. After which he took out several coins from his pocket and started counting them in the dark one by one. So he stared at his eccentric senior with a puzzled look on his face.
何してるんすか
よりによって5円玉だけありゃしねえそうお前5円玉持ってねえか
はあ
Perplexed, Sua took a 5-yen coin out from his wallet and held it out to Bond. However, instead of taking it straight away, Bond tore the bottom button off the shirt he was wearing. He then untied the thread fastened to the button.
先輩ついに頭おかしくなったんすか
生意気な口聞くようになったじゃねえか
Bond chuckled and lightly lapped Sua on the head. He then took the thread and weeded through the hole in the center of the coin. Aww. After pinching both ends of the thread with his fingers, Bond let the 5-yen coin hang down and handed it to his junior.
振り子っすか
Bond smiled mischievously.
こいつが事件の重要なヒントを与えてくれるかもしれねえぜ
Aww.
マジっすか
Huh.
バンさん勘弁してほしいっすよそのために仕事をほっぽってここまで来たんすか
So his tone was almost mournful. He had been pushed around countless times by Bond before now, but this time Bond had finally managed to utterly stump the rookie detective.
サイキック操作とかダウジングとか
Hold up. A technique for locating groundwater, mineral deposits, or various other things by relying on the movement of a rod, pendulum, or other similar technology. One of the most popular methods is to use two angled rods, typically in the form of oval-shaped wires. The person who does the dowsing is called a dowser. It is widely believed that the human body is an internal magnet that reacts to underground water veins and other objects, and this causes muscles to move unconsciously. The prevailing theory is that this is why dowsing rods appear as if they move by themselves.
その手のテレビでも見て影響を受けたんすね先輩
そういうお前も詳しいじゃねえの
いやまあ自分も見たは見たっすよ先週のユーリ・ブライトマン
ユーリブラ
ユーリ・ブライトマンっすよ。今話題になってるアメリカの超能力捜査官っす。
Typically found in America, it is an investigator who uses psychic abilities such as clairvoyance in order to aid in solving crime. Often appears in Japanese media. However, despite the established title, such a position does not actually exist in America, and the mainstream perception of psychic investigation is that it is extremely ineffective. Goddamn right it is.
そんなチラチラしたもんじゃねえじゃん。どこかのお偉い大学教授が出ててだな。
でもテレビっすよね。
ちいち文句の多いやつだ。やってみりゃわかる。ほら、いいから吊るしてみろって。
When his senior issued that request, Sua did not have any room to refuse. His lips pursed in his sullen manner, but he reluctantly accepted the Fabian coin, pinched the ends of the string, and began to twirl it around in a circle, creating the centrifugal motion. It was too dark for either of them to see it clearly, so Bond flicked on a 100-yen cigarette lighter and used it as their light source.
先輩ってタバコ吸いましたっけ
？10年以上前に禁煙したよ。飲んでた。
ライター持ってたっすから。
こういうこともあろうかと用意しといたんだよ。
I mean, a lighter is a pretty useful little light source if you have nothing else, I guess.
はは。で、これで何がわかるんす？
もっといろいろ動かしたり止めたりしてみろ。
Bond monitored the movement of the Fabian coin intently. Bond's eyes were so intensely serious, Sua could no longer complain about this being a pointless excursion.
やっぱりな。スワ、わかるか？
何がっす？
5円玉の動きだよ。さっきから少しだけ楕円を描いてるような気がしねえか
？Using the sword as support, the dangling 5-yen coin was slowly revolving around in a circular motion. Sua cocked his head.
力の入れ方とかじゃないんすかね。
お前、楕円に回るように意識してやってんのか？
いや、結構適当にくるくると。
もっと手を動かさねえようにやってみろ。
Sua consciously tried to move his hand in a circular fashion. No matter how hard he tried, the trajectory drawn by the Fabian coin was always elliptical in shape.
おかしいな。
意識的に違う形にしようとしてもできねえだろ？
Bond's face was full of pride. Sua, on the other hand, was still not convinced and continued relentlessly in his quest to try and change the motion of the pendulum.
まあ、渋谷のどこでもこの現象が見られるわけじゃねえが。それでも十数箇所はここみてえな場所があるらしい。
確かに不思議っすね。でもだから何なんす？
Wait a minute. Bond looked up in satisfaction, put his lighter back in his pocket, then retrieved the hand fan that he had stabbed between his belt and his pants.
渋谷がなんでここまで若者を引きつけるか。
Wait a minute. Is he trying to say that? Well, I mean, he probably doesn't know it specifically, but I assume that it'll probably be like that around Scramble Crossing and some other places as well. Places where delusions are likely to be quite likely to occur.
5円玉が楕円を描くからっすか？
Well, I'm just making a theory. Sua thought he was making a clever jab, but Bond nodded readily in response, calmly fanning his face all the while.
そういうことだ。
Oh, back here.
なぜこの渋谷という場所を
Ooh, you're right. Right. Suddenly the conversation I was having with FES transitioned into something completely unrelated. Aww. Aww. Did this have something to do with D-swords? If not, then I didn't care. I had to somehow find a way to get FES to tell me how to get my hands on a real D-sword. Both in front of and behind me, the same words were being spoken from the two FESs at the exact same time. Perfect synchronization. It gave me a somewhat strange feeling. And FES split in half? Were both of them the real FES, or were both of them imposters? Why? Well, that has absolutely nothing to do with me. Two FESs paused for a moment. Being watched from both in front and behind started to make me feel very uncomfortable. Aww. Aww. This is bad, my rational side warned me. Could this be? Maybe she was trying to recruit me into some sketchy religious cult. I began to feel uneasy. Man, maybe I should just get the heck out of here. But upon hearing the next thing FES said to me, I realized I would no longer have that option. Aww. Ah, back here. Bon returned to the main street from the alleyway, then began walking towards Shibuya Station. Suwa, who now assumed that they were going to Shinsen, chased after his senior detective with an obvious frown on his face. A law discovered by Isaac Newton that stated that all matter, energy, and anything that was mass is the force that attracts those things with mass. The force of attraction becomes stronger the heavier the two sections of matter are, and it becomes weaker the greater the distance between them. The law also applies to the gravitational force exhibited by Earth and other planets. There is a famous story. You grew discouraged in response to Von's slightly mocking tone. Huh.
オカルトじゃねえよ。世界には引力がアンバランス化してる地域ってのが何箇所かある。アンバランス化ですか。振り子が楕円を描いたのもその影響ってこった。G レートって呼ぶらしい。
I think.
G レート。
正式名称は何だっつってたかな。グルバケーショングラリッシュエラー。
引力ならグラビテーションじゃないですか。グラビテーションエラーレート。
ああ。
おお、そうそうそれだ。グラビテーションエラーレート。
直訳すると万有引力の異常値ですか。
物理学の辞典を調べりゃ載ってるはずだぜ。
Holy shit.
載ってたっすかね。
The GE rate, an imbalance that it contradicts the law of universal gravitation. Discovered by Isaac Newton, the law of universal gravitation is a fundamental force of nature that acts between all forms of energy and matter, i.e. anything that contains mass. It is commonly believed that the great number of strata layered upon the Earth's surface played a large part in this law. A typical example of something that disturbs local areas would be lava beds. This phenomenon can be found at the foot of Mount Fuji, Aokigahara, also known as the Sea of Trees, where there have been several recorded instances of compasses becoming unusable. Studies have also shown that fossil beds, particularly rich in iron and calcium, are another type of stratum in which magnetism is repelled. Adding on to the previous factors, magnetite is also believed to have a particularly strong influence on gravity. If magnetite, a naturally occurring magnet with an octahedral crystal structure, were to be found beneath the Earth in a quantity large enough to warrant being recognized as a dike, it would be as if the ground itself were a magnet. This would then result in an extremely high chance of the area producing minute gravitational deviations. The GE rate is the measurement of the gravitational values in a region in which such values have been distorted by the previously mentioned geological strata. Aww. When Bond's explanation concluded, the two men who had been walking the entire time were just exiting onto Dogenzaka. The scenery surrounding them instantly turned bright and dazzling.
渋谷の平均 GE レートは世界でもトップクラスらしいぜ。地面に置いたボールが一人でに坂を登っていくようなケースもあるらしい。
マジっすか?
Huh. Sua, who had been listening in other songs up until now, who was surprised with the slightly exaggerated tone.
まるで SF 映画の世界っすね。
お前の好きな
な。
自分は小難しいのは嫌いっすよ。壮大なスケールの映画がいいっす。
知らねえよ。
It's all great to me.
先輩の説明はすごくもっともらしいっすけど、なかなか信じられないっすよ。G レートなんて聞いたこともないっすし。
てめえの無知を一般論として語るな。デカに必要なのは事実を客観視することだぞ。
はあ。でも。
What Sua said was equally true. The research into the G rate was minimal, and the swimming was not something that would be taught to an everyday college student. Bond himself had not even been aware of it until a few weeks ago.
そもそもまだ肝心の答えを聞いてないっすよ。渋谷の重力がアンバランスだとなんで若者が引きつけられるんですか？
引力と人間ってのは意外と因果関係があるってことだよ。お前、生き物のバイオリズムは月の引力に関係してるっての知ってたか？潮の満ち引きだけじゃねえんだぜ。
ウミガメの産卵には月の影響があるらしいってのはどっかで耳にしたことがあるっす。
ああ、必ず満月の夜に産卵するってやつだな。だがウミガメだけじゃねえ。他に有名なのだとサンゴが産卵するのも満月の夜だ。
海の中が雪降ってるみたいになるやつっすね。
満月の夜は引力も強くなってるって科学的に実証されてんだ。当然人間にもその影響は及んでる。
人の出産にもってことっすか？
出産だけじゃねえよ。バイオリズムって言ったろ。普通の生理現象はもちろん交通事故や事件、病気、食欲とか性欲とかにも密接なつながりがある。興奮すると頭に血が上ってるって言うだろう。あれは月の引力に引っ張られてるんだよ。
そりゃ極論だと思うっすよ。まるで個々の感情なんて関係なくて全部月のせいだって言ってるようなもんじゃないですか。
そこまでは言わねえがな。集団心理って言うだろ。 この町に来た途端に楽しい気分になったり、ちょっと無茶したくなったりするかもしんねえんじゃねえの。ニュージェネの一連の事件に対する反応だってそうだ。この町でそのニュースを見た連中は大抵反応が同じだ。どいつもこいつも楽しんでやがる。自分だけは被害者にならないって気持ちだ。対岸の火事を眺めていい気になってる。
そういう集団心理も G レートのせいってことですか？
可能性としてはありだろう。渋谷に来たら楽しい気分になるってのが若いやつらの頭の中に無意識に刷り込まれれば、
若者がこの街に惹かれる理由になるってわけですね。
So it really is the fast learner, Bond thought to himself, impressed. The junior detective was still young, but that part of him truly was worthy of praise. In addition, what set him apart from other young people was that he did not just follow his seniors blindly. Whenever he had a question or whenever he thought something did not make sense, he would always voice it, despite the fact that he was a junior in name.
G レートについては一応分かったっすけどそれでどうやって犯人を探すんですか？もし G レートに影響されて今回みたいな事件が起きたってなら、何百年も前から似たようなことが起きてないと変なんじゃん。
そいつはこれから調べりゃいいさ。専門家だ。
先輩は調べないんですか？
俺はデカだぞ。
The boss smirked from ear to ear.
調べるのはニュージェネのことだけだ。そのために今日はわざわざ仕事サボって現場の G レートを測ったんだ。もしこれまでの一連の現場の G レートが異常を示したなら何を意味すると思う？
That's what I was thinking.
まさか。
So his eyes went wide and he stopped dead in his tracks. It seemed as if he had realized what Bond was trying to
事
imply.
件は G レートが異常を示している場所で起こるってことですか？だとしたら、次の事件が起こる場所をある程度予測できるんですね。
まだそう決まったわけじゃねえよ。それをこれから調べんだ。
There was something lurking within this city. Something yet unknown, hidden deep beneath its flashy exterior. Perhaps it was akin to Pandora's box, something not meant to be touched by the hands of men. A box given to mankind by the gods in Greek mythology. The people were told never to open it, but a woman named Pandora gave in to her curiosity and opened it anyway, unleashing the many calamities held inside upon the world. It is said that the only thing left remaining in the box was hope. Thoughts such as these pervaded Bond's mind as he watched the pedestrians file down the streets of Shibuya. I'm back here, let's go! As soon as I heard those words, I knew I couldn't take it anymore. If yes, I'd been going on and on about all these things I didn't care about, all while continuing to dodge what I'd actually asked her. Couldn't possibly care any less about some greater will or why Shibuya attracts young people or whatever else. There was only one thing I wanted to know. Mustering up my courage, I asked FES that question. Without changing her aloof expression, FES gazed down at the sword she was holding. Despite how gigantic the sword was, she seemed to be handling it with incredible ease. Maybe she had just had an absurd level of physical strength or something. No, it's just an illusion. Why is it that you'll go on and on about all this random shit, yet you can't tell me the most crucial thing I need to know? You don't know. Then how in the living fuck did you get the D-sword here holding in your hand right now? So in other words, those without the power couldn't see them, but I could see it extremely clearly. Then what did she mean by the power? Delusions, my boy. Was she saying that I had supernatural powers like what the two FESs in front of me had?
君には私の剣が見えているでしょ。それが意味するの一つだけ。
If Shogun and Yua were destroying my life because of it, and I didn't want this stupid bullshit power, but I still did want a D-sword, because it would grant me salvation. If yes, had said so. Stuff like the greater will and the reason why I should be attracted to young people made no difference to me. I didn't want some random power, nor did I want to be roped into all this BS in any way, shape, or form. In order to escape the clutches of Shogun and Yua, I had to get my hands on a sword.
感じて世界の選択した意志。
But FES's answer was as ambiguous as every other damn thing she'd said. Biting my lip, I tried desperately to think of any way I could extract information from her. But as a person who was terrible at talking to 3D people, I couldn't think of anything that would be effective at all. I tried to pull from my bank of eroge situation, but everything that came to mind was fairly unsettling. Instead of slipping her an aphrodisiac, tying her up, or imprisoning her. Man, I may or may not be extremely fucked up. You're goddamn right.
名前は
FES turned her back to me, then slowly began to walk deeper into the tunnel.
私は岸本綾瀬。
When she said that, I realized that we still hadn't introduced ourselves to each other yet.
西条匠。
I couldn't see ISA's expression from where I was. Why she was laughing, I didn't know.
また会いましょう。匠。
ISA was moving farther and farther away. I fearfully turned my head to see what happened to the other ISA. Only to find out that she had disappeared without a trace. Had she literally disappeared, or had she just walked out of the underpass? ISA had said that the other ISA was a delusion. Maybe that was the power of the D-sword. I returned my gaze to the inside of the underpass, and right as I did, I saw that ISA was going up the other staircase, which was about 50 meters deeper into the tunnel. Eventually, her figure disappeared completely, and now all that remained was the eerie silence of the underpass. I wasn't brave enough to yell after her. I was too exhausted to run after her, and I was overwhelmed with the feeling that it wasn't worth the trouble. In the end, all I could do was return home as cautiously as I could, making sure not to be spotted by Yua or the police on the way. It felt like it had been ages since I'd last been in my base, but in reality it had only been half a day. I left my computer on, leaving my serotonin screensaver to cast a pale light together with her smile across the dark room. I locked the door tightly from the inside and threw myself onto the sofa. When I closed my eyes, I couldn't help but remember everything that had happened today. I couldn't believe even the police thought I was the culprit. I did it all wrong. There was absolutely no way I could have killed all those people. Investigate all like you actually give a shit. This isn't a game. Otaku freaks like myself are ostracized by society, so they must have thought that they could just pin the crime on one of us, and the public wouldn't even bat an eye. They couldn't actually catch the real culprit, so they wanted to save face by using me as a scapegoat. Damn it, what could I do to clear my name? That scene at Cafe flashed before my eyes, sending a chill down my spine. There existed someone that was even more terrifying than the police. Yua, my enemy. I had been so unbelievably relieved that I hadn't heard anything from her recently. I had been growing more and more confident that she'd never contact me again. But today, I'd realized that I'd been mistaken. In order to oppose all of them, I needed a D-sword. I glanced at the cheap sword that was leaning against my PC desk. It was a fake. The ISA had said that only people with the power can see them. That day, I'd bought my sword and Nanami had seen me with it. And everyone else did too. Unlike ISA and Senna swords that didn't glow. Where could a real one be? Where would a real one be? I had to get my hands on one as soon as possible. If I didn't, I was doomed. Getting wrapped up in something like this, and something this insane, it sucked so much.
あなたは DIT 多重人格なんです。
No, that's not true. That's impossible. Multiple personality disorders are supposed to be rare in Japan. You've been watching way too many goddamn movies, Yua. I don't have multiple personalities. There's no proof of that at all. Wait.
違う。あれは違う。
But that chat log is consistent with what Yua told me.
あんなの捏造だ。証拠にはならない。
There's no proof that I don't have multiple personalities.
先生は僕を多重人格だなんて診断しなかった。
That very doctor, Dr. Takashina, is now gone for some unknown reason.
僕が一番よく知ってる。
I don't actually know myself. I felt it was on the nape of my neck. The usual presence. Someone was watching me, the unknown gaze. Whose eyes are those eyes?
そうだ。将軍だ。あいつが犯人だ。チャットログにもそう書いてあったじゃないか。ユアは将軍の手下だし。ニュージェネ事件だって全部将軍が。
Does Shogun truly exist? Are you sure he isn't just a delusion?
僕はまともだ。まともなんだ。そうでしょ。
I questioned my head and shouted out to no one in particular. But what I got in reply was...
メールだよボケナス
Oh no! Sarah. I sluggishly made my way over to the computer and checked my email. Oh, the cinder was grim. Oh, grim. Found something interesting was the subject line. It was probably just bait, and the contents of the email were meant to fuck with me. I didn't have the energy to deal with him personally right now, so I stuck to just reading the email. Hot-Kun, why haven't you joined the chat room at all lately? You haven't been on ESO either, so I had no choice but to email you. I would have told you to watch this vid because it's seriously fucked up. Fuck, I don't know what you're thinking. It's probably just Grim fucking with me, but no. It was recorded by the new Gen Perp. The Knights are going absolutely insane over it. Hurry up and watch it before you miss the hype, SMH. Aww. A video that had been recorded by the Nugent culprit. My fingertips on the mouse began to tremble. I couldn't take my eyes off the email. Did that mean the killer was in the video? Who was it? No, was it me? Both wanted to see it and didn't want it to at the same time. This was the proof. Proof that I wasn't the killer. Or proof that I was the killer. Which one it would be, I didn't know. It was a gamble. Feeling my heart begin to beat faster and faster, I moved the mouse cursor and hovered over the link. But I couldn't work up the courage to click the URL.
私あなたを助けたい
Get up. Don't treat me like a criminal. Don't act like you feel sorry for me. You didn't do it. You're the one on the criminal side, you are. In an intense fit of rage, I clicked on the URL. It was a YouTube video. The word loading appeared in the video window.
僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない僕じゃない。
In reality, it only took about 10 seconds for the video to load, but those 10 seconds felt like an eternity to me. Eventually, it finished loading, and the video started to play. Oh. It was a video of a dark place. Of a very dark place. The background was pitch black, maybe it was indoors. I leaned my head in close to the monitor, trying my best to parse the information on the screen. It was dark and therefore had hard to see, but there were several men and women there. They were all making a ton of noise. Maybe it was because the bitrate was too low, or maybe because the people in the video were too distraught, but I couldn't make out a single thing they were saying. Every once in a while, whenever someone screamed violently, the sound would clip horribly. After watching it for a bit longer, I was able to determine that there were 5 people in the video. If it included the cameraman, it would be 6. The cameraman didn't enter the frame at all. Because of how dark it was, the faces of the 5 people were just barely visible. As though to confer to one another, they were caressing each other's heads, patting each other's shoulders, and hugging. I could also hear the high-pitched sobbing of a girl, likely overcome with emotion. It's definitely bizarre, but how did this video have any connection to New Gen? Was the person filming this really the New Gen culprit? At the very least, I knew I had no memory of recording something like this. And then, after a short while, the camera, or rather, the person holding the camera, began to slowly move forward. 5 subjects who were about 5 meters away from the cameraman gradually grew larger and larger. The picture was fairly grainy. Maybe the original image data was re-encoded at an extremely low bitrate in order to reduce its size. A modern video camera should have a night vision function, so I wondered why the cameraman hadn't made use of it. Could it have been an older camera? As soon as I thought that, the camera suddenly panned to the left and then to the right, showing the surrounding scenery. What I had initially thought was just the pitch black darkness of a room was actually the night sky. In other words, the video had been recorded outdoors. As for the reason why there wasn't a single building or anything, it was because the video had been taken on the roof of a skyscraper. 5 people were on the edge of the roof of a very tall building. Right behind them was the ledge, and right below that ledge was the glittering nightscape of Shibuya that could only be seen at high altitudes. Finally, I understood. I finally understood what this video was. I finally understood why it was said to have been recorded by the New Gen culprit. A locked room mystery in which a group of 5 men and women jumped from the roof of Cornelius Tower. The sole fact that remained unclear about New Gen was whether or not this specific incident was a murder case or a group suicide. If this video was of the 5 people who jumped to their deaths, then that would mean there had been a 6th person at the scene when the incident occurred. The 5 people shown in the video hadn't just been making noise for the sake of it. They were all slumped down on the ground, crying and shouting as they huddled together. They all refused to give up, despite the fact that they were fated to die soon. One was shaking their head in denial as they cried. One was clutching their hair tightly as they fell to their knees, their shoulders heaving with each sob. One was pleading with the cameraman as they sobbed, asking why they were doing this. One had already gone mad and was laughing as tears streamed down his face. It was a rabid, violent desire to stay alive, a fervent, intense plea to not die. Disconsolate indignation that screamed, "Why is this happening to me?" Innumerable raw emotions swirled around the group. Yet, in a bizarre juxtaposition, the cameraman's voice was never once heard. The cameraman was eerily calm. No matter how much I pleaded with the footage that had been taken nearly a month ago, nothing was going to change. I knew full well that it was meaningless, but I subconsciously screamed at my monitor all the same. With no possible way for my words to reach them, the cameraman was holding moved even closer to the 5 people. Terrified, the 5 of them all tried to crawl away, to get away from the camera. They couldn't. Right behind them was the very edge of the helipad. There was no guardrail of any kind. The 5 of them had nowhere to go. If they moved back even a little bit farther, they would fall. Refusing to heed the 5's pleas for their lives, the cameraman continued to focus solely on filming as if to agitate the 5 all the more. He had driven them completely to the edge, to the point they took no further action at all. Then, without any sort of cue, nor any form of signaling one another, the 5 people had all been crying out, and grief suddenly fell silent. Then, they all stood up. The wind on the rooftop of the Cornelius Tower was powerful. Thickened by the wind, the 5 of them nearly staggered. If there was even the slightest misstep, they would fall. As if in preparation for such things, 5 men and women all joined hands, seemingly in resignation. They grasped each other's hands tightly. Silence. It seemed to me that even the sound of the wind whipping violently through the air had stopped. All I could hear was the sound of cars driving along Shuto Expressway at the foot of the building. Even then, the cameraman did not make a single move. And then, a single person among the 5 whispered,
その目誰の目？
Oh no. I froze in front of the monitor, feeling as though my heart was being strangled by an ice-cold hand.
なんでまたその言葉なんだよ。
Ah! Now, wasn't this supposed to be the first new Jin case? Whose eyes of those eyes had been the dying messenger of the vampire case, and that one came forth. This didn't make any goddamn sense. Paying no mind to the screaming inside my head, the video continued to play. Hand in hand, the 5 men and women slowly stepped out into the empty air, almost as if there was a path laid out before them. And then, just like that, the 5 fell into the nightscape of the big city. I bit my lip and covered my eyes. The group dive hadn't been a mass suicide. It, too, was a murder case. The culprit had been there when it had happened. And as for who'd filmed the video, I knew who it was. Mixed in with the sound of the strong wind on the rooftop. Mixed in with the sounds of the 5 people crying out in grief. Mixed in with the blaring horns from Shudo Expressway below, I was certain that I had heard one particular faint sound. It was the sound of creaking steel. A sound that could only be heard from when the cameraman was moving forward. The sound of a wheelchair.
あの時
Shogun.
僕の前に現れたのは現実だったんだね。
Shogun.
カメラの目線が低すぎだよ。
Shogun.
Shogun.
Shogun! Ah! I think it's about time for me to end it here then. Alright, I shall be seeing you all next time then. Goodbye.